Every day, people reveal themselves to you. They reveal themselves in conversations, in reactions, in small decisions, in moments of pressure, and especially in the things they do when they believe no one is paying attention. Yet most people continue to judge others by their words. This is one of the easiest ways to be deceived. Words are cheap because words can be controlled. They can be rehearsed, polished, calculated, and delivered at precisely the right moment. A person can tell you they are loyal, honest, generous, or trustworthy without possessing any of those qualities. Behavior is different. Behavior requires repetition, and repetition eventually exposes the truth. If you want to understand people before giving them your trust, develop the habit of watching what they consistently do rather than becoming hypnotized by what they say. The great observers of human nature understand a simple principle: never confuse someone's presentation with their character. Every person is capable of creating an attractive image. They smile, they flatter, they agree with you, they tell you exactly what you want to hear. They may even appear unusually interested in your life. None of this proves deception, but none of it proves character either. It is simply presentation. The mistake is believing the presentation before examining the evidence beneath it. Trust should never be granted because someone gave you a convincing speech about why they deserve it. Trust should develop slowly, through repeated evidence. Anyone can say, "You can trust me." Very few people are willing to spend months proving it. Character becomes visible when keeping a promise becomes inconvenient. Loyalty becomes visible when betrayal would be profitable. Honesty becomes visible when lying would be easier. This is why pressure is such a powerful revealer of human nature. When nothing is at stake, almost everyone can behave well. Put something valuable at risk, introduce competition, create disappointment, remove comfort, or offer them an opportunity to benefit at your expense, and suddenly you are no longer observing their performance. You are observing their priorities, and priorities reveal character. People often make another dangerous mistake. They fall in love with potential. They hear beautiful words and imagine a beautiful future. They see one impressive quality and mentally complete the rest of the personality themselves. They think, maybe they will change. Maybe they are different with me. Maybe that was just a mistake. Emotion encourages this kind of thinking because emotion wants certainty before evidence exists. The wiser approach is slower. Do not decide who someone is too quickly. Give them time. Watch what repeats. One generous act may be accidental. One angry moment may be caused by stress. One broken promise may have an explanation. But repeated behavior becomes difficult to explain away. If someone repeatedly disrespects boundaries, repeatedly breaks commitments, repeatedly lies, or repeatedly creates excuses, eventually the excuses become less important than the pattern. A pattern is evidence, and evidence is what trust should be built upon. Hashtag the first test, consistency. Watch whether a person's behavior matches their words over time. Do they respect your time after telling you that they respect you? Do they keep small promises as carefully as important ones? Do they remain honest when dishonesty would benefit them? Do they behave according to the same principles when nobody is watching? These details appear insignificant until you begin connecting them. Character is rarely revealed in one dramatic moment. It is usually revealed through hundreds of small choices. The impatient person eventually loses patience. The dishonest person eventually contradicts themselves. The selfish person eventually places their interests above everyone else's. The manipulator eventually becomes careless with the mask. This is why time is one of the greatest weapons available to an intelligent observer. You do not need to interrogate people. You do not need to expose them. You simply need to watch. A false personality requires energy to maintain. Reality does not. Eventually, habit defeats performance. This is also why you should never feel pressured to trust someone quickly. A person who insists that you must trust them immediately is giving you information. Genuine character does not fear time. If someone is truly consistent, time will strengthen your confidence in them. If someone is performing, time will eventually weaken the performance. Patience, therefore, protects you. It gives people enough room to reveal themselves without realizing they are being tested. Hashtag never let charm replace evidence. Charm is one of the most powerful forms of social influence because it creates emotional comfort. A charismatic person can make you feel understood within minutes. They can make you laugh. They can make you feel important. They can create an immediate sense of familiarity. But charm and character are not the same thing. Some of the most trustworthy people are quiet and unimpressive at first. Some of the most dangerous people are exceptionally persuasive. The intelligent observer therefore asks a different question. Not, do I like this person? But, what evidence has this person given me that they deserve my trust? That question creates distance between emotion and judgment. It forces you to observe rather than assume. And once you develop this habit, manipulation becomes much harder. You begin noticing contradictions, promises that repeatedly go unfulfilled, apologies followed by identical behavior, affection that appears only when something is wanted, kindness that disappears when the audience disappears. The question changes from, does this person seem trustworthy? To, has this person consistently behaved in a trustworthy way? That is a much more powerful question. Watch how they treat those who cannot help them. There is an even deeper test of character. Stop observing only how someone treats you. Watch how they treat people who have nothing to offer them. This is where many masks begin to disappear. People naturally behave differently around those who possess status, wealth, beauty, authority, or influence. They become polite. They become patient. They become attentive. But remove the incentive and observe what remains. Watch how they speak to a waiter after receiving the wrong order. Watch how they treat a cleaner. Watch how they speak to a security guard. Watch how they react when an elderly person moves slowly. Watch how they behave around children. Watch what happens when they encounter someone they believe is beneath them. These moments are valuable because they are rarely rehearsed. A person who is respectful only toward people they need is not demonstrating kindness. They are demonstrating strategy. The difference matters. Anyone can be generous when generosity produces admiration. Anyone can be polite when politeness produces an advantage. The real test is what happens when there is nothing to gain. A person's treatment of powerless people often reveals their deepest beliefs about power itself. Do they believe respect must be earned through status? Do they become arrogant when they have authority? Do they humiliate people who cannot fight back? Do they suddenly become generous when important people enter the room? These are not random details, they are clues. And the more clues you collect, the clearer the character becomes. Listen to how they speak about absent people. Another powerful test is what someone says when the person being discussed is not present. Listen carefully. If someone constantly exposes private information, humiliates their friends, spreads secrets, or enjoys destroying the reputation of others, do not assume you will receive special treatment forever. People tend to repeat behavioral patterns. The person who casually betrays another person's confidence may eventually betray yours. The person who constantly criticizes former friends may eventually make you the former friend. The person who enjoys humiliating others for entertainment may eventually discover that you are an entertaining target. Never assume you are magically exempt from someone's established pattern. Instead, ask yourself, what happens to me when I occupy the position these other people currently occupy? That question can save you years of disappointment. Watch what power does to them. Power is another revealing environment. Give someone authority, even temporarily, and observe what changes. Some people become more responsible, others become more arrogant, some become more generous, others become cruel. Power does not always create a person's character. Often, it removes the restraints that were hiding it. A person who suddenly becomes disrespectful when they gain authority has revealed something important. The mask simply became unnecessary. This is why observing someone in multiple environments is so valuable. Watch them with friends. Watch them with family. Watch them with strangers. Watch them when they are winning. Watch them when they are losing. Watch them when they are praised. Watch them when they are criticized. Watch them when they are denied something they want. Every environment removes another layer of the performance. Eventually, a pattern begins to emerge. Learn the difference between a mistake and a pattern. Do not become paranoid. Reading people intelligently does not mean condemning them for every mistake. Everyone has bad days. Everyone loses patience. Everyone says something they regret. Everyone occasionally fails. The important question is not whether someone has flaws. The important question is whether they take responsibility for those flaws, and whether the behavior keeps returning. A mistake followed by accountability is different from a pattern followed by excuses. An apology means little when it is simply preparation for the next repetition. So watch what happens after the apology. Does behavior change, or does the cycle begin again? Character is not perfection. Character is consistency in values and responsibility when those values are violated. A trustworthy person can make mistakes. What separates them is their response to the mistake. They acknowledge it, they correct it, they learn from it. The untrustworthy person often does something different. They blame circumstances, they blame other people, they change the story. They explain why the behavior was justified, then they repeat it. That repetition tells you more than the apology ever could. #study emotional reactions. But there's another layer of human nature that many people overlook. If you want to read someone deeply, study not only their actions, but their emotional reactions. Words can be prepared. Emotions are harder to control. A person may carefully construct an explanation, but their immediate reaction can reveal what the explanation is trying to conceal. Watch what happens when they are jealous. Watch what happens when they feel ignored. Watch what happens when someone else succeeds. Watch what happens when they are criticized. Watch what happens when they are rejected. Watch what happens when they lose control of a situation. These moments are psychologically revealing because they place pressure on the identity a person is trying to maintain. A confident person who becomes hostile whenever someone else receives attention may be revealing insecurity. A generous person who becomes resentful when their generosity is not recognized may reveal that their kindness depends upon validation. A person who claims to love your success but becomes cold whenever you surpass them may reveal a hidden rivalry. The emotional reaction often arrives before the explanation. First comes the expression, then comes the justification. This is why intelligent observers pay attention to the first reaction, not merely the polished explanation that follows. Someone may say they are happy for you, but what happened to their face when they heard the news? Someone may say criticism does not bother them, but what happened when you challenged their opinion? Someone may claim they do not care about status, but how do they behave when someone more powerful enters the room? The contradiction between stated values and emotional reactions is often where hidden motives become visible. Do not rush to accuse, simply observe. You are not trying to prove that everyone is secretly malicious. You are trying to understand what actually drives them. And that distinction is crucial. The purpose of reading people is not suspicion, it is perception. Once you stop demanding that people reveal themselves through confession and start allowing their behavior to reveal them naturally, human nature becomes easier to understand. People leave clues everywhere. In their promises, in their habits, in their relationships, in the way they treat strangers, in the way they respond to power, in the way they react to failure, in the emotions they struggle to hide. The wise person does not need every secret explained. They watch the pattern, because eventually the pattern speaks. And when the pattern speaks loudly enough, words become almost unnecessary. Do not trust the image someone carefully presents. Study the behavior they repeatedly cannot hide. That is where character lives. #read people like a book before you trust them. Most people believe they understand others because they listen carefully to what those people say. This is a mistake. Words are the easiest part of human behavior to control. A person can rehearse an explanation, polish an apology, disguise an insecurity, or manufacture the appearance of loyalty. They can tell you exactly what you want to hear because they understand that words create impressions. But reactions are harder to control. The moment emotion enters the picture, the carefully constructed image begins to weaken. Watch what happens when someone else succeeds. Watch what happens when they are criticized. Watch what happens when they are ignored. Watch what happens when they lose control. Watch what happens when reality refuses to give them what they want. These moments are valuable because they create psychological pressure, and pressure has a way of forcing hidden qualities toward the surface. A secure person can watch another person succeed without feeling personally defeated. Their identity is not threatened by someone else's victory, so they can offer genuine congratulations. The insecure person often cannot. They may smile while quietly minimizing the achievement. They may change the subject. They may suddenly discover reasons why the accomplishment is not impressive. They may disguise envy as humor or disguise competition as advice. Do not become distracted by the words. Study the emotional movement underneath them. A person may say, "I'm happy for you." But what happens immediately afterward? Do they celebrate your success, or do they begin searching for a way to reduce it? This distinction matters because envy rarely announces itself. It leaks. It appears in tone, timing, facial expressions, unnecessary criticism, sudden distance, and subtle attempts to make you question your own achievement. The intelligent observer does not need a confession. The pattern is enough. Hashtag defensiveness reveals the ego. Another revealing emotion is defensiveness. Everyone makes mistakes, but mistakes themselves tell you very little about a person's character. Their response to the mistake tells you far more. When a person with emotional maturity is criticized, they may dislike what they hear. They may feel embarrassed or uncomfortable, but after the emotion passes, they can examine the criticism. The insecure person has a different priority. They must protect the image. Instead of asking, "Is there truth in what you are saying?" they ask, "How can I make sure I am not blamed?" Or suddenly there are excuses, then explanations, then accusations, then someone else becomes responsible. Watch this carefully. A person who cannot accept responsibility for a small mistake will often struggle even more when the consequences become serious. Their first instinct is not correction. It is self-protection. And that reaction tells you something their carefully chosen words never could. Hashtag watch what happens when life disappoints them. There is another powerful test. Disappointment. Plans change, people say no, opportunities disappear, expectations fail, life refuses to cooperate. These moments remove comfort, and when comfort disappears, personality often becomes more visible. Observe someone who is pleasant when everything goes according to plan. Then watch them when something goes wrong. Do they remain respectful? Can they adapt? Can they control frustration? Or does their personality suddenly change? Some people are kind only when circumstances are kind to them. Their patience exists only while they are receiving what they want. Their respect exists only while they feel respected. Their generosity exists only while it is appreciated. The moment reality becomes inconvenient, the performance collapses. This is why comfort tells you very little about character. Pressure tells you much more. Character becomes visible when comfort disappears. Hashtag jealousy rarely looks like jealousy. Jealousy is particularly deceptive because it rarely arrives wearing the face of jealousy. Most people will never say, "Your success makes me uncomfortable." Instead, they become distant. They become sarcastic. They begin comparing. They suddenly notice every flaw. They offer criticism at precisely the moment you expected celebration. They may even convince themselves that they are helping you. This is why you must learn to observe changes rather than isolated behaviors. Ask yourself, what changed after I succeeded? What changed after I received attention? What changed after someone praised me? What changed after I moved ahead? People reveal themselves when circumstances around them change. The person who genuinely wants your success will not need to become smaller because you became larger. But the insecure person may experience your progress as a threat. Your victory reminds them of their own position. And instead of confronting that feeling internally, they may attempt to reduce you. Do not become angry. Do not accuse them immediately. Simply remember what you observed. Information is more valuable than confrontation. Hashtag watch what they do when they lose control. Control is another psychological pressure point. Some people remain calm when circumstances become uncertain. Others become manipulative. Some become aggressive. Others become emotionally unpredictable. The important thing is not that they experience emotion. Everyone does. The important thing is what they do with it. Fear is human. Anger is human. Disappointment is human. Jealousy is human. But emotional maturity determines whether a person controls these forces or allows these forces to control them. When someone loses control of a situation, observe their behavior. Do they search for solutions, or do they search for someone to dominate? Do they adapt, Or do they punish others because reality refused to obey them? This distinction reveals their relationship with power. A disciplined person can experience frustration without turning frustration into cruelty. An undisciplined person allows emotion to become permission. And once you understand this, emotional reactions become another language you can learn to read. Hashtag, do not be seduced by flattery. One of the oldest methods of influence is also one of the simplest. Make someone feel important. Flattery works because people naturally want confirmation of the identity they have created for themselves. Tell someone they are intelligent, attractive, unique, powerful, misunderstood, or exceptional, and their defenses may begin to lower. This does not mean every compliment is manipulation. Genuine appreciation usually has a natural quality to it. It is specific, measured, and does not demand immediate repayment. Manipulative praise is different. It is excessive, it arrives too quickly, it seems perfectly timed. Someone studies what you want to believe about yourself and then reflects it back to you. The result is an artificial sense of connection. You think, this person understands me. But perhaps they have simply studied you. That is why you should never become dependent on praise when evaluating someone's character. Watch what happens after the compliments disappear. Do their actions remain consistent? Does their respect remain? Do they continue showing up when there is nothing to gain? Words create expectations. Actions create evidence. Always choose evidence. Hashtag, the greatest danger is your own emotion. There is a deeper problem, however. Sometimes the person deceiving you is not the most dangerous influence in the room. You are. Your own emotions can distort what you see. If you become excited too quickly, you will interpret everything positively. If you become attached too quickly, you will defend behavior you should be examining. If you desperately want someone to be trustworthy, you will begin collecting evidence in their favor while ignoring evidence against them. This is one of the great weaknesses of human judgment. We do not simply observe reality. We interpret reality according to what we want to be true. Therefore, before learning to read other people, learn to control the observer. Control yourself, slow down, do not rush to trust, do not rush to condemn, do not rush to become emotionally invested. Instead, observe. Let the person reveal themselves through repetition. One emotional reaction proves little. A repeated emotional pattern reveals much more. Hashtag trust should be earned in stages. This leads to one of the most important principles of human relationships. Never give complete trust before someone has demonstrated that they can carry it. Trust should not be a reward for charm. It should not be granted because someone makes you feel comfortable. It should not be created by chemistry, excitement, or a few intense conversations. Those things create feelings. They do not create evidence. A person may seem remarkably compatible with you during the first few days. They may share your interests. They may agree with your beliefs. They may make you feel understood. Enjoy the connection, but observe it. Give time the opportunity to test it. The wise person does not immediately open every door. They allow access gradually. A small responsibility comes first, then another. A small confidence, a small commitment, a small test of reliability. If the person consistently handles these things well, trust can expand. This is not coldness, it is strategy. You are allowing reality to determine how much access someone deserves. Hashtag small promises reveal large character. Do not wait for a dramatic betrayal to determine whether someone is reliable. Watch the small things. If they say they will call, do they call? If they borrow something, do they return it? If they make a mistake, do they admit it? If they promise something inconvenient, do they still follow through? Small commitments are miniature versions of larger responsibilities. Someone who repeatedly fails at small things should not automatically be trusted with large things. Yet people often ignore these clues because they are emotionally invested. They say, "It's not a big deal. They were busy. They probably forgot." Once perhaps, repeatedly, now you are looking at a pattern. And patterns deserve more attention than excuses. Hashtag watch how they react to your boundaries. Another powerful test is what happens when you slow the relationship down. A healthy person understands that trust takes time. They do not demand access to your private life immediately. They do not pressure you to reveal secrets. They do not become offended because you are cautious. They understand that intimacy is built. Manipulative people often behave differently. They try to accelerate the process. They encourage you to reveal personal information too quickly. They create artificial closeness. They may make you feel guilty for maintaining boundaries. Why? Because time is dangerous to manipulation. Time gives you more evidence. More evidence gives you more opportunities to recognize contradictions. Therefore, someone who desperately needs instant trust may have a reason for wanting you to skip the observation stage. Pay attention. #trust is a process, not a feeling. People often misunderstand trust. They think trusting someone means assuming the best about them. It does not. Healthy trust means allowing evidence to influence your confidence. If someone repeatedly keeps their word, your trust increases. If someone repeatedly violates boundaries, your trust decreases. This is not cynicism, it is calibration. You are adjusting your level of trust according to reality. That is how intelligent people protect themselves without becoming emotionally closed. You can remain kind without being naive. You can remain open without becoming careless. You can believe in people's potential without giving them unlimited access to your life. The difference lies in whether you confuse hope with evidence. #pressure reveals what comfort conceals. Eventually, every person encounters pressure. This is where observation becomes even more powerful. Comfort allows people to maintain an image. Pressure makes maintaining that image more difficult. Watch what happens when someone does not get what they want. Watch what happens when they fail. Watch what happens when they are criticized. Watch what happens when they lose status. Watch what happens when someone says no. Watch what happens when their plans collapse. These moments remove the luxury of performance. A person can prepare a charming personality for a dinner. They cannot easily prepare for disappointment. They can rehearse what they will say. They cannot perfectly rehearse every emotional reaction. Pressure therefore becomes a kind of psychological laboratory. It reveals what has been hiding underneath. #failure reveals responsibility. Failure is especially revealing. Everyone fails. But some people use failure as information. Others use it as an excuse. The mature person asks, "What did I do wrong?" The immature person asks, "Who can I blame?" This distinction matters. A person who accepts responsibility can learn. A person who refuses responsibility must constantly construct explanations. And the more serious the failure becomes, the more dangerous that habit becomes. Watch how someone responds when their plans fail. Do they become bitter? Do they attack others? Do they learn? Do they adapt? Do they take responsibility? You are not simply watching an emotional reaction, you are watching their philosophy toward reality. #success reveals character too. Do not make the mistake of believing only failure exposes people. Success can be even more revealing. Give someone recognition, give them influence, give them authority. Then watch what happens. Do they become more generous, or do they become more arrogant? Do they remember the people who helped them, or do they suddenly behave as if they achieved everything alone? Power often does not create character, it exposes it. The person who becomes cruel after gaining authority may have always possessed that cruelty. Circumstances simply remove the need to hide it. That is why you should observe people in changing environments. Do not judge them from one scene. Watch the entire film. #conflict is a psychological X-ray. Eventually, every relationship encounters disagreement. Conflict is unavoidable. But conflict does not automatically destroy relationships. Poor character does. Watch how someone argues. Can they listen? Can they disagree without humiliating? Can they admit when they are wrong? Can they search for a solution, or must they win? Some people do not seek understanding during conflict. They seek dominance, they insult, they manipulate, they threaten withdrawal, they distort what happened. They attack the person rather than address the problem. Conflict strips away social politeness. It reveals how someone behaves when their ego feels threatened. That is valuable information. #integrity has a price. Anyone can be honest when honesty costs nothing. The real test comes when dishonesty would be profitable. Would they tell the truth if lying could save them? Would they keep a promise if breaking it would make their life easier? Would they remain loyal when abandoning someone would improve their position? Integrity only becomes meaningful when there is something to lose. This is why difficult decisions reveal character more accurately than easy ones. Character is not measured by what someone does when the right choice is convenient. It is measured by what they choose when the wrong choice is tempting. Hashtag, do not become cynical. There is a danger in learning to read people. You may become suspicious of everyone. That is not wisdom. Wisdom is the ability to see clearly without becoming poisoned by what you see. People are imperfect. They become impatient. They become afraid. They become jealous. They fail. They make mistakes. The objective is not to condemn every weakness. The objective is to distinguish between a temporary reaction and an established pattern. One bad day does not define a person. Repeated behavior does. Compassion and judgment can coexist. You can understand someone's struggle while still recognizing that their behavior is unhealthy. You do not need hatred to establish a boundary. You need clarity. Hashtag observe before you attach. All of these lessons lead to one final principle. Do not become emotionally attached before you have finished observing. Human beings crave connection. We want to feel understood. We want to believe we have found someone special. And because of this desire, we often allow emotion to outrun evidence. Someone enters our life. They say the right things. They share our interests. They make us feel important. Soon, we begin imagining the future. But something subtle has happened. We are no longer seeing the person. We are seeing the person we hope they become. Hope has replaced observation. This is where many betrayals begin. Not with the other person's deception, but with our refusal to accept what we were already seeing. Hashtag, let time expose the truth. Patience is not weakness. It is psychological leverage. Time gives reality room to speak. The impressive first impression may fade. The charming behavior may disappear. The promises may be tested. The boundaries may be challenged. Pressure will eventually arrive. And when it does, the truth becomes easier to recognize. Do not fear taking relationships slowly. You are not losing an opportunity by refusing to rush trust. You are protecting yourself from giving permanent access to someone who has only demonstrated temporary behavior. The patient observer does not need to force answers. They allow answers to appear. Hashtag silence is an instrument. You do not always need to ask questions. Sometimes you learn more by saying less. Watch, listen, notice. Who interrupts? Who listens? Who changes personality around powerful people? Who becomes cruel when frustrated? Who celebrates other people's victories? Who becomes uncomfortable when attention moves away from them? Who respects boundaries? Who repeatedly breaks them? These observations become pages. Eventually, the pages form a book. And once enough pages have accumulated, the person no longer needs to explain themselves. Their behavior has already written the explanation. Hashtag do not confuse intensity with connection. Another trap is emotional intensity. Some relationships become intense immediately. Deep conversations, constant messages, instant vulnerability, declarations of loyalty, promises of permanent connection. It feels powerful, but intensity is not proof of intimacy. Sometimes intensity is simply acceleration. A manipulative person may understand that emotional attachment weakens observation. Once you are emotionally invested, you become more likely to defend what you should be questioning. You overlook contradictions because you do not want the fantasy to collapse. Therefore, slow down. Let connection develop naturally. If it is genuine, time will strengthen it. If it is artificial, time will expose it. Hashtag control your own need to believe. The final person you must learn to read is yourself. Your loneliness can distort judgment. Your admiration can distort judgment. Your excitement can distort judgment. Your desire to be loved can distort judgment. When you desperately want someone to be trustworthy, you will find reasons to trust them. This is why self-awareness is essential. Before asking, "Who is this person?" ask, "What do I desperately want this person to be?" That question can reveal the bias standing between you and reality. The calmer your emotions, the sharper your observation becomes. You do not need to become suspicious. You need to become disciplined. Hashtag not everyone deserves access. There is another truth that becomes easier to accept once you understand human nature. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to remain there. Some people become companions, some become lessons, some reveal qualities you should seek, others reveal qualities you should avoid. Your task is not to force every relationship to survive. Your task is to recognize what the relationship is actually showing you. Those who consistently demonstrate honesty, humility, respect, emotional discipline, and integrity will naturally earn greater access. Those who repeatedly demonstrate manipulation, dishonesty, disrespect, instability, or selfishness will reveal why distance is necessary. No dramatic confrontation is always required. Sometimes observation is enough. You simply stop investing where the evidence tells you not to. Hashtag the final principle. The greatest protection against betrayal is not suspicion, it is patience. You do not need to assume everyone is dangerous. You need to stop assuming everyone is trustworthy. There is a difference. Study patterns instead of promises. Watch behavior instead of appearances. Observe people when they have nothing to gain. Study their reactions to success, failure, rejection, criticism, and pressure. Notice what happens when they lose control. Notice what happens when they gain power. Notice whether their values survive inconvenience. Then give trust gradually. Let every action become another piece of evidence. Because people are constantly telling you who they are, not through their speeches, not through their promises, not through the image they carefully construct. They reveal themselves through repetition, through pressure, through emotion, through small decisions no one thinks are important. And eventually, if you are patient enough, the performance disappears. What remains is character. That is when you stop guessing who someone is. You simply know. The wise do not demand that people confess their nature. They create enough distance and enough time for human nature to confess itself.